Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on an oldie but a goodie. It's one of the first reels my dad ever bought me, so it's near and dear to my heart. It's a Penn 350 level wind. Now I got to tell you, this reel's in nice condition. It was not the reel my dad bought me, but I have fond memories of the one he did. Unfortunately, as a 9-year-old kid, I guess I was probably pretty tough on the darn reels, and I didn't know what I didn't know about reel repair and maintenance. So I don't know exactly where that wound up. I think it wound up with my brother, but that's okay. I bought another one just to kind of keep my my memories alive. And one of our viewers said that the earlier video I did on this one, which was one of the first ones I did about 2 years ago, probably could have been done better. So here's my chance at redemption, I guess. So we're going to take this apart. I'll show you how to service it, and I'll show you I guess there's a question about the anti-reverse dog in the torsion bar and so on. So that's what made this reel unique. I guess when my dad was buying it, he didn't want to teach us how to thumb the line under fighting a fish. So this torsion bar actually feeds the line back and forth. Quite an advanced design, pretty neat. And it's not your traditional line bar that you would find on a reel by today's standards. So this reel, I know, dating myself, but I think my dad bought it for us in 1960. I'm not quite sure when it was first introduced or how long it left, but I'm pretty sure he bought it right around the 1960 time frame when we used to go out and do some charter boat fishing in the Northeast here. All right, we're going to start by taking the reel apart. We're going to do that by removing the screw that holds down the screw for the handle. And you'll notice a couple of things while we're doing this. The first is that I have a protective glove on my hand. Even though this is a clean reel, I work on reels all day, and I tend to get a lot of grease and junk, at least subject to it. So I like to keep that glove on there so that I can avoid that. When you take that screw out there, you're going to be able to remove the handle, and then you'll be able to remove the star adjuster. And then there's one more piece under there. There's a little ferrule, and you can remove that, or you can leave that in there later. A lot of folks ask about this wrench too. This is not the standard Penn wrench. This is a aftermarket product. This would be what your standard wrench would look like. It came with the reel, not with the bent hook. I use that to pull bearings, but that would be your standard. And as you can notice, this one's a lot longer, which gives you leverage, and it's a lot thicker because when you start taking that screw off and get up, the other one tends to slide underneath. I believe that wrench is branded under Allen Tanny. It's available through mysticparts.com, and if you work on a lot of Penn reels, it's a blessing to have that wrench there. It does save you time and effort and gets you out of a tight spot from time to time. And it has both the smaller one for the smaller size reels, and then it has a bigger nut for like the 6.0 centers and the like. All right, I'm removing the side plate screws now to get at that gear side plate. And again, they're all going in the bucket here. I do want to make a point. There are two different sizes of this side plate screw. So if you're paying attention or you're not paying attention, you'll find that there is a short screw that goes in the reel seat, this being the reel seat, and there's longer screws which go in the side plates. So you'll have 2 short ones and 4 long ones. Short ones go below. Remember that on reassembly, you'll probably be able to get both screws in either piece, but if you're reassembling and you put the screw through here, it may catch the monofilament line later. You saw the torsion bar fall out. That's kind of okay. And interestingly enough, I won't be taking it down to the point where I'm going to remove this to show you that other side plate. Okay, so this one hasn't been serviced in a while. I'm not quite sure where I got it or when I did it, but this is, I think, what our viewer was asking about, how these assemblies work. So you have 2 things. You have a click ratchet here on the drive for this torsion bar. Let's get the right side here. Like that. I just knocked it out, so that's fine because you wanted to know how to put it back in anyway. So that has a screw and an anti-reverse dog. And then this one is the reverse ratchet, and that's going to drive off of this gear, and it's going to advance the torsion bar. So we have an anti-reverse and we have an advance here to that. And you know what, I always get in trouble with springs, so let's get that spring off right now without shooting it somewhere, just in case. I know a lot of folks refer to these springs as the flying circus or flying ants, and if you don't pay attention, you certainly can do that. Alright, so that's your anti-reverse setup there. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Let's go take the bridge off then. The bridge has got 4 screws. That's the typical 4 screws of the bridge. And this bridge, I believe they share with the some of the Penn Beachmaster series, the 155 and so on. So if you need parts, this part of it is the same, as is the spool. So the spool is going to fit a 155 Beachmaster, or if you need a spool for this, that 155 Beachmaster spool will fit it. Notice I've got my hands cupped to just in case something jumps out underneath there. And we have an anti-reverse dog in this one as well. We have a spring. So this is the 3rd dog now. We have the anti-reverse dog. And then we have the main gear assembly. We have the pinion or spool gear. We have the main assembly. And then we have pretty much what is a traditional setup on the Penn reels of the time. We have a yoke assembly and a jack. You want to remove the jack, the yoke, and the springs. Oops, almost lost that one. And then you'll notice that of the 4 screws, 2 of them that came out have the partial threading, and 2 of them have the full threading. The partial threading goes up top and acts as a collar for those springs on the yoke. Alright, we're just going to take the steel wool. I'm going to just clean that up a little bit. There's not much on here. As you can see, it's a nicely cared for reel. I don't even know if I did this one or if this is just the condition it came in. I know I haven't taken this reel fishing, so I may not have paid any attention to it. Just looked cosmetically, it looked nice. Alright, underneath this is a main gear assembly from the 155 Beachmaster, so if you need the drag washers for it, it's there. Only because we're showing you how to do this, not because it's needed. This bridge assembly is turning freely, but as part of the service you would want to locate the pin that holds the gear sleeve on and push that pin through, like I'm doing here with a punch. You'll see how that pin comes through here, and then you can grab a pliers to remove it, because it has to clear a little gap on the bridge sleeve here. This little slot here is where that pin is riding in to hold the gear sleeve in. And then I just like to tuck that pin right back in, get it started for a reinstall. Alright, then use your steel wool or a paper towel, depending on what you find underneath here, to clean that bridge up. And you'll notice on the bridge itself, it says 3-155, and the 155 is the Penn Beachmaster series. So you can see how a lot of the parts that Penn did were interchangeable. Alright, I've put some Penn Universal or Penn Precision wheel grease, that's the blue grease I use. Put that on the shaft, and then we can reinstall the gear sleeve. And you can press that pin back in. And when you press that pin back in, make sure it clears the shoulder. Alright, I don't expect to see anything terrible with these drag washers here, because again the reel doesn't appear to be too used. We have leather washers, which are okay, that's the way they came. And you just want to make sure they're flexible. If they crack, go get them replaced. And again, you can still get these washers today, and they're available at mysticparts.com if you're trying to find them. I'm going to put a little bit of a light coating of grease on this. I'm going to use Cal's drag grease. I'm just going to kind of use my gloved hand to spread it around. If there was any excess, you could wipe it off. And then the pattern on this is there's one keyed washer, or there's two keyed washers and one eared washer. The keyed washers have flat sides internally. The eared washer has two studs. Leave it to technology for a dead battery. Alright, so we were explaining that you have flat sides. Those are keyed washers, round internal with two prods out. That's the eared washer. And so it goes fabric washer, in this case leather washer, around. Let's do the same thing again. Put some Cal's Universal Grease on there. Kind of make sure that it's nice and flexible, which it is. Put that back on. Now the eared washer is the one that belongs in the middle. And there's slots inside the main gear. Now it's kind of hard to find those slots on this particular one since it's such a small main gear. So you kind of have to twirl it. Eventually you do find it. It's right there. Then you can press it in. You can see how they inset into the main gear. Then we'll do this again. Get that nice and moved up. The last of the keyed washers, and then we have a cap washer which goes on top of that, and then we have a gear sleeve or ferrule that goes on top of that. Alright, so there's only one other thing to do here then, and that's this piece, and we'll take that off. Now normally I would probably just look at that and say it looks fine and this wheel's clean and why bother, but again this is a how-to video, so we're going to take it all off so that everybody is aware of what's going on here. You would clean the channel here if you found that you had any grease or debris in there. There's not a lot going on there. And then we have this, this gear has a little offset to it. I forget what they call that, counter or something. But it's, it'll make it oscillate because it's not dead center inside the hole there, so it will travel off on an offset. So what we'll do here then, we'll get a little bit of grease onto the back side of this where it came out. We'll put that into the channel. Hard to confuse this, but I'm sure somebody along the way has probably confused this. It goes up this way. So let's go ahead and put that back on. And then you can put a little bit of grease onto the exterior, although it's really not needed. Put that screw back in. And we don't have that spring on yet. We'll get there in a moment. From the back side of this, you want to do the same thing then. You want to grab a cotton swab and take care of any excess grease that may have been in the channel here. This one's pretty dry all around. Grab your grease brush or however you're applying grease these days. Get some onto the eccentric. And then get some onto the teeth of the main gear. You don't have to coat the main gear, but get it on there. You want to make sure that it gets grease into the teeth. And then you want to find the pinion gear. Check the teeth, make sure it's clean. If you had any question, go ahead and use a bristle brush or steel wool or something to get the grooves clean. This one is. Check the teeth and make sure that they're uniform and not bent. I just did a Penn Squall, which had a pinion gear that was noisy, and it happened to be that the teeth were bent on it. So it doesn't matter the age of the wheel, check it. Okay, so let's go ahead and install the top part of this then. We're going to put the two springs into the cavity, one on each side. Remember we said that the larger screws, the ones with the collars on them, are going to be underneath that. And we're going to take our yoke, which we cleaned up, and our jack, which we cleaned up. We put a little bit of grease onto the yoke. Here's another one that's got the part number 155 on it for the Beachmaster. So again, the internals on this one are pretty much the same as the Beachmaster, with the added feature of the torsion bar for the level one. Alright, now we can put grease onto the spool gear or pinion gear. That slot in the pinion gear goes out, so it's facing you as you do that, so that it can accept the spool. Once you put that on top of the springs, please compress the springs. Load the jack over it. Load the grease onto the jack so that when it slides under the bridge, it does so nicely. Grab your bridge and then pushing down, put the bridge in and rotate it approximately halfway to completion so that it's kind of perpendicular. Get a full threaded screw for the bottom. And hopefully you didn't confuse which one of the 3 dogs belongs where, but this one is the one that belongs as the anti-reverse dog. Go back to your pictures if you've gotten lost in that and weren't quite certain. And it's 3 different spring sizes too, so don't confuse them either. That's why when I went into this parts tray there, I put them in 3 different corners of that tray. And then you can rotate after you've put that spring into that little groove there in the channel. Line that bottom screw up with the hole, and then just a couple of turns to tighten. Don't tighten them down completely. Just enough that you feel it grab. You have a second one that's threaded. That will go on the other side. And again, just partial starts. Then go up top with the 2 that have the partial threading on it. Those are the ones that go through the springs. And again, I'm not tightening anything down. I'm just making sure that they grab the bridge at this point. And then once I know that all 4 screws are in, then I can go ahead and start tightening. And you can know they're in by just turning it over and seeing that they are there. And then I go north, south, east, west. So I go back to that first one that I put in, then I come up opposite on the top corner, and I go below. And just make sure that they're all tightened at this point. Alright, that's this side of the reel. You can spin it to make sure it's working properly, which it is. Let's come over and make sure that we do the rest of this with that spring. That was the bigger of the 2 springs. And this is the time where everybody gets nervous, including me. There's a little hook or a claw foot or something on this mechanism here. Get the one side over that spring. And it's a spring, so I hold my fingers down as best I can. And then I just kind of work it in, and I like to do it by hand if I can. I'll use a screwdriver if I have to, but I want to make sure that I've got that thing set and that it's not going to shoot, because if it shoots, we'll spend some time looking around the bench for that. Alright, and then we had the last one here, which is very much like the other one that we had. That claws down this way, creates the cavity just like the one that was over here. You got a cavity here for the spring, and that's the 3rd spring that we had in here. So let's go ahead and grab that and put that in. And again, I like to set these by hand if I can. So that's the setup that we started with. That's what the viewer's question was: how the heck does all of this come together? And that's the answer to that question. I'm going to grab my brush again and just put a little bit of grease onto the gear on both sides. You don't have to get grease into the teeth on this one because it's not driving. It's actually being held back as a click ratchet. And then we can go ahead and put that side plate on. Just like that. And the servicing side of that is basically done. So what you need to do now is you need to make sure that we get the torsion bar in properly. Now you can put some grease onto this because that is going to be moving a little bit into the hole. I'll have to put a lot on. And this should be the side that that goes into. Nope, wrong side. There you go. In a while. Alright, this is the stud that goes in there. Hold that in. Go ahead to set your side plate on now. Oops. Yeah. Isn't that nice? The spool just reminded me I didn't clean the other side. Yeah. Sometimes you just get those reminders. Somebody would have told me that from my following here, that I did a good service but forgot that. Go ahead and do it again, kind of thing. And then we'll make sure that this side is clean too. A lot of moving parts on this reel. It's not exactly the 155. Alright, now we can go ahead. So that one little claw is setting you up there for this. Find a hole. Make sure that you get that in right. There we go. And then make sure you get in the other side. It's a little bit of a balancing act, but it's not terribly difficult. Just checking the free throw there on the free spool. All right. Now what I like to do is the same thing here that I did on the bridge. I want to kind of balance these out. Get one started on one side, come over to the other side. Come back over, maybe do this cross post. Trying to hold a lot of things together at the moment on this one. But generally you can do it with a little bit of patience. I've had friends tell me that the art of reel repair requires 3 things. One of them is kind of a mechanical aptitude. I think we all kind of have enough to do that. Patience and a sense of humor, and I think that they probably have got that right. All right, now the 2 short screws go on the bottom here, because if you can't laugh at yourself and you can't have some fun with this, you're going to have some kind of frustrating days going on from time to time when a piece doesn't line up, when you still have a grind after you thought you fixed it. Whole bunch of reasons why that can happen. All right, so there we go. Unfortunately, this reel's not going fishing. This one's probably going back on the shelf. Again, it's more memories of my dad and the reel he purchased rather than taking it fishing, although it can certainly go fishing, that's for sure. And I don't save a lot of reels. A lot of folks ask me if I'm a collector. I'm not a collector. I have a few little treasures that I just kind of hold on to, but they're more memory speaking than any value of the reel. So interestingly enough, the most value of this reel is actually this stupid little torsion bar here, which if you've lost one, bent one, or otherwise, you'd pay dearly for it. It's probably worth its weight in gold, kind of speaking. If we didn't take that gear sleeve off now, you could put a drop of oil in there, but because we took that off and we lubricated it, you don't need to do that. Down to the last 2 in a test. So at this point, again, thank you if you're a first responder or essential personnel. We really do appreciate everything it is that you've been doing to help us get through this pandemic. And thank you for watching what available time you may have. If you know a first responder or essential personnel, please thank them. Let them know that their services are definitely appreciated. And do what you can to help them get through this as they're helping us get through it. All right, so this is that Allen Tanny wrench again. We're going to line up the little scallop. With that hole, we're going to put the set screw in. Tighten that down. Sometimes easier said than done. But we eventually get there. There we go. All tighten down the drag. Give it a spin. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit out. There you go. So that's it. That's the Penn Leveline 350, circa 1960. What a fun little reel. Caught a lot of fish with a reel like this, and have a lot of great memories of using it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. If you like it, please indicate that. If you have questions regarding this reel or any, just leave them in the comments. And I would appreciate it if you subscribe to keep my channel vibrant. Thank you for watching.